Alice, can you tell us about your background, what you do, and your involvement in comedy and things?
So I guess I started working in comedy in 2012, and going up to the Edinburgh Festival, and so I've worked as a technician, stage manager, and more recently as a producer. I work with sketch group Grubby Little Mitts, and I've worked at various fringe venues in London. I was worked at Pleasance, all those sorts of things, and that's me.
Fun, cool. Eddie, you're a bit different because you are a comedian, aren't you?
Yeah.
A so-called comedian. There we go. But your shows all have quite a lot of production value, and you put a lot of thought and effort into that.
Yeah, there's a lot of production. I'm not sure if the value bit is part of it, but I'm a musical comedian, stand-up comedian. Hello. Hey. So I do music on the circuit, which generally means I have to arrive half an hour to 45 minutes early to make sure that the sound's working on the loop pedal and all that. And my shows. So I did fine art at university with live art as like the focus of that, because the teachers liked it, but didn't know much about it, so they just sort of gave me the benefit of the doubt with the marks, which was great. And sort of from that, like making the sculptures and the things that I used, that kind of went into the show stuff I do. And gradually, over this last year, I've been working on my new show, which is sort of comedy theatre or theatre comedy, pending which programmers I talk to.
Cool, great. I think it's really good that we've got like a range of different kind of backgrounds on it. I mean, Alice and Lily kind of come more from a theatre-y background and then started doing comedy. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
So what kind of is it about comedy that makes you interested in working predominantly in that, or leaning towards that, as opposed to more dramatic or musical or whatever kind of theatre?
Well, actually, I started in comedy and then moved into theatre because it paid better.
That is a surprise. That is a big surprise.
So yeah, but I've always kept the comedy going alongside the theatre stuff when it's made sense.
So you did. How did you get into that? How did you get into teching?
So I just applied to be venue crew at the Pleasance, and they took me, and then I worked there, and then I moved down to London, and then they took me on as a casual technician there alongside my degree, and.
So what was your degree? Was it like?
I did a liberal arts degree. didn't, and then I did a master's in musical theatre. Where I focused on producing rather than any of the performing stuff.
Great. Yeah, well, that's cool. I think it is important then to say, like with yourself, with people who want to get into tech or anything like that, going to the fringe can be a big help pushing you into that, especially if you've not really done any tech before. It really kind of just teaches you the basics. But then most people have to take it for themselves after that. It doesn't teach you everything you need to know, but it's a great starting point if anyone wants to kind of get involved. But we'll talk about the fringe in hefty detail later. Lily, how did you get how did you get into comedy, or was it?
So I started in theatre and live art as well. Actually, I did a drama and theatre arts degree. I originally wanted to be a performer, and then I got to the end of, I think it was my first year, and went, oh my God, what have I done? I was like, I can't do this. I'm first of all not nearly as good as the people on my course, and I was like, and this is sort of one cohort, so I can't imagine what the pool's like after we graduate. And it made me realise that I wanted to play sort of on stage in some way, but it wasn't as a performer, as a place on stage, originally as a sound designer, actually. So I started to sort of specialise in sound design throughout my degree, had a really, really great tech team at Goldsmiths University in London who were very, very supportive and really helpful. And then, after that, after I graduated, just started working at every single venue I could work at, a lot of fringe venues, so you just meet a range of people, do a range of different types of productions. And then just kind of went from there, really. I started mainly in theatre, moving more towards comedy because I just find comedy that's got high production value even funnier. I think there's something really funny, especially about a sort of really silly, like stupid clown walking around in this world that they've created, but then the production value is really, really high, and it just makes them look even like stupider. It's brilliant. It's one of my favourite things.
It's a fun little juxtaposition.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Eddie, you're doing stuff with the Lowry as well. Is it like you're in like a production help scheme or thing, or is it? What's that?
So it's kind of it's called the Developed With cohort, which has been running for a few years, and it's kind of.
Say it's with the Lowry Theatre in Manchester.
Yeah,
Salford.
Salford. If
Salford.
We've got Salford. Come here. Look, we know on the map it's Greater Manchester.
But where is
Salford?
Salford?
We say Salford.
Where is Salford?
It's in. You're right. It's Manchester.
It is
But
Manchester.
it's look. I didn't look. Okay. So it's part of. So they don't produce stuff in house. So instead they do this thing called Developed With, which is an artist development thing. So it's a bit more broad, I guess, in what they can take on. So this time there was 6 of us. There's a dancer, sort of drama maker, somebody who does a lot of access, like creative access, so creative interpretation integrated, and they're writing a play that uses that, and a visual artist as well. And so there's not necessarily a particular thing that's being made from it, but you do get a commission to help with that. So over this, I've basically been given money and sort of resources to actually get money to do those mad production value, well, hopefully, the mad production value things, because I find previously as a performer, especially with fringe stuff, which is the best education I think you can have, but wanting to do techie things and wanting to do like putting video into your show, and like, so my first show I enter via a zip line, but it's just like a little cardboard version of me on a zip line. But obviously it's like you have to attach a piece of string and then make sure that the cardboard's weighted enough to go down, and then whether you're pushing it down or whether the tech person you're helping you is pushing it, and what I don't know. But you figure that out yourself, and I think that's the fringe is really helpful for that. And I can use that cheap learning to hopefully use some money learning.
Good plans. How then, apart from just the money that they give you, which is also a great help, what kind of like production assistance do they give you? Do they give you like advice on what you can bring to it, or do they do anything like that? Or do they just kind of say, here's a lot of money and here's a bit of a space, you figure it out?
It's a bit, I guess, less so than production. Like they as the arts development team there, who are amazing, they have contacts that they've worked with. So Antonia there has made her own shows. She's an artist too, and she has contacts and people who have been in communication with the Lowry that they sort of put me in touch with. But it's quite self-guided in that way. But there's a bit more support in terms of like organisational development, which isn't what this is about. So right. I shan't talk about it.
Okay, that's fine. That's great. Okay, so this whole talk is probably mostly for comedians who want to up their production game and promoters who want to kind of like make their shows better. So with that in mind, what kind of elements do you think comedians, specifically for like fringe shows or festival shows, could bring to their shows to make them better? Like, what kind of things do you think they should think about? Where could they start? What kind of skills could they learn? What kind of equipment and things would you recommend they kind of get? That's quite a big question. I should have broken down into little questions. But basically, go ahead.
I think I would say that maybe not the easiest thing, but sort of the first thing that springs to mind is that you can just teach yourself QLab at home. So QLab's a software where you can run your sound and video and lights if you want to do that, but that's your call. But mainly it's sound and video. But it's a program that you can download on your laptop for free. You can teach yourself at home. There's a lot of...
Only if it's a Mac, though.
Yeah, you do have to have a Mac.
Oh, really? You can't use it on Windows?
No, you
No,
can't use it on
no.
Windows.
Yeah.
No.
Only if it's a Mac. Yeah. Should have added that.
No.
Like,
Good
are there
addition.
any other... There aren't any equivalents for Windows, but are there any things that kind of do a similar thing that would be good to use?
What I've used up until 2 months ago, and Sarah, who is in the audience, who was the touring tech for me for War of the Worlds. sorry, the show was Eddie Hurst's comedy version of Jeff Wayne's musical version of She Was literary version by Rawson Was radio version, Stevens Wilkes film version of The War of the Worlds.
Yeah.
Rolls off the tongue.
It
Really.
rolls off
Yeah.
the tongue. It really is a piece. It's like melted butter.
It's too long for any brochure.
It is. But often I find it really. Sorry, this is. I find it quite like, you know, that story about Van Halen with the brown M&Ms, where they'd ask for the and if a program or an organisation got back in touch to be like, how do you want to do this? It was like, oh, this will be good because they care about the fact that it can't fit. And that was great because like, oh no, they care that it's stupid and that it needs to be stupid, but it's how it gets to be stupid.
I think that's a good point with a lot of the production is like, how can we make this stupid
Yeah.
better?
But I use PowerPoint for ages, like, and that works on
Yeah.
Windows, and you can't put like lighting cues into it, but you can put video and sound, and it comes with every Office thing. It's not the best, but it works, and I think most people know how to use it, maybe.
Yeah. But don't.
So QLab, is a fantastic program. I am actually sponsored by Figure 53. No, I'm joking, but I do sing QLab's praises a lot. Just because if you do have a Mac, you can download it at home for free. And there are the Figure 53 have got a really good YouTube channel where they go through everything in a very silly way. And it just makes you, especially, you know, if you are at a fringe venue or a fringe festival, and you've got that limited tech slot, you can do a lot of it at home on your laptop and your computer, and that is really helpful and gets you ahead very, very quickly.
And making changes and things to your QLab. So if you have a show and there's a bit you want to change, you can just change it at home, and then it's already ready for the next day. You don't have to do anything.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's really fast to change as well.
Yeah, I mean that's the first thing that springs to mind, is a really just straightforward thing that you can just do in the comfort of your own home as well.
Yeah.
Having lights in the venues, good idea too.
Having lights in the venues. Mate,
just
what are
like,
these?
Yeah. No, they're great. No,
They're set design.
as I think doing comedy. I mean, it's like, this is more circuit head stuff, but you know, the amount of times when you go to comedy nights and they've not got like just not a super expensive, but a lighting system you can use. Instead, it's like, oh, we have to hope the pub will have a circuit where they can turn off most of the lights except the ones in the area where we've got this concept of the stage.
Yeah. I was going to broach on this later, but if bring it up now, so we might as well talk about it now, is the difference between amateur stand-up comedy nights and pro stand-up comedy nights, I feel, is the sound.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you don't like lights, if you don't have lights, it's not really a comedy show because you can't see them. Yeah. It's radio. But the difference between a pro night and an amateur night is if they've got walk-on music. If they don't have walk-on music, if they don't have most places will have some kind of house music, and they just turn it off, and then the compere goes on stage, or like whoever's running the night says, "Please welcome to stage," whoever it is. But if you just have some kind of walk-on music for the acts, it just really elevates the night, and it kind of just gets the audience hyped up for that. And then choosing the right kind of walk-on music. Either have the same thing for everyone, or ask the comedian if they want anything specific, because it's just less better. The only reason where you wouldn't have the same song for everyone is if you've got loads of people on. So yesterday we did live at the Montfort Hall, and there's like 8 acts, and that's too many times to hear the same song. If you've got 4 acts, the same song. If you've got any more than 6, change it.
Do you have a go-to song?
Yeah, Black Keys, Gold on the Ceiling.
Yeah, nice. Yeah.
Yeah, it's got a really good, like, quieter bit, and then it kicks in real hard, and that's when you actually introduce the person, and then when it's just the act coming on, you cut off the beginning, so it just goes straight into the other bit. I'll play it at the end. Great. What else then? So when a comedian approaches you to produce their show, or produce the show, design the show, or when you approach a producer, designer, tech, start building a show, how does that conversation normally start? What kind of details do you need from them, and where does your thinking go? If you want to speak about Grubby Little Mitts specifically.
So for the first show that we did, I almost fell into that. They were looking for an Edinburgh Tech, and I happened to have a space, and it all fitted together. But I came on board before we went up to Edinburgh. It's a sketch show. And quite a few of the sketches are quite tech heavy. So we needed that rehearsal time to be able to make sure that I was as in sync with them as they were with each other. And that it then meant that when we got to Edinburgh, I knew what all the lighting states were going to be, so I could sit down and just program that whilst they did other stuff, getting this, because you have 3 hours.
Yeah.
If the Q lab's all sorted, as you said, you just have to make sure it's all the right level in the venue, and then get the lights sorted out once you're there, see what they've got, and hope it's what you asked for in your tech, when you filled in your tech requirements with the venue that you're at.
Does it vary a lot from what is said that is there and what is actually there?
It can do. Okay. I think now, I don't want to say most Edinburgh venues. Some, the ones that we've been to have had what we've asked for, but there have been times with other people that I've worked with where you've gone, oh yeah, so we've got these 2 states that you can have. And we're like, oh, okay, we're doing a sketch show that really needed a bit more than that, but fine, we'll work with it. All those scene changes we were going to have aren't there now. The sound's still there, but you just got to hope for the best.
Yeah. But you figure out.
Yeah, exactly. You work it out. And but for the current show that we did in Edinburgh last year, and then yesterday we announced the tour of it for March, March, April. And for that one, I was on board from the very beginning. So did all their works in progress with them. And we had rehearsals where we'd meet in Rosie's garden and practice things, or the director's living room. Yeah. And just work it all out, yeah. I think if you want something that's really tech heavy, get someone on board as soon as you can is really... that's
don't try to do it all
if you
yourself.
need support. If you need support for
Excuse me?
if you can do it all yourself, that's also... work it out to do it all yourself, that's also fine. But I think to stop yourself from stressing out as much, potentially.
What do you mean? I'm very chill. All my shows are very chill. Very chill guy to work with.
That's fine. It's just, I think, planning, that's a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
I guess with the being on board with the tour from quite early on, and then working with the director and the sketch group, how much influence do you think a technician can have on the actual comedy of a show, or like the routines and bits that go into it? Like, do you feel like you get some kind of creative input in that?
I think so, but also there are moments that you can kill moments if you do it badly.
Oh yeah.
So I think maybe specifically with sketch, you do almost become an extra member of the group.
Absolutely.
That you don't necessarily do if you're just a tour manager for a stand-up.
Yes.
Potentially.
Yeah.
Obviously, there will be exceptions to that.
Yeah.
Like Julia's show that you've been teching is...
Lily as well.
Yeah, that's... The work that you guys do in that show is amazing. Like...
It's good fun.
It's very, very cool. And like, I remember watching it. I watched it a couple of weeks ago now. Was it XS?
XS, XS Lucky.
And it was just like, oh my god, yeah. You need somebody else to do that, but you're part of the team. You're part of the creative team. Yeah.
It takes a lot of practice to get a lot of the timing things with that right. Especially with I'm on Vigo Vens tour at the moment. I'll just pick up that name. A lot of it is. And you probably get with Stamptown as well, and Johnny, who does the sound for Stamptown, and Zach Zucker.
Oh yeah, and Zach's
getting the sound cues exactly right at the right moment is good. But then there are moments where you can play a sound and surprise the act, and that also can get good reaction.
That's really fun.
It is really fun.
I think me and Johnny have got into a really good rhythm with Stamptown of actually just messing with it completely. And the reason I really like that is you start to get an audience on your side of just like, oh yeah, actually there are people back there doing that, and they're messing with Zach, and Zach's getting annoyed, and we're actually on their side now, which I think is something really, really fun. Very silly.
Do you like it when the acts like reference you and speak to you, or that kind of thing? Because quite often in comedy is when an act plans a tech thing to go wrong and then like blames you, and it's all part of the joke. How do you feel about that?
It's when a tech thing doesn't go wrong. Their jokes just fall flat, and then they blame you for it, that I don't like.
Yeah.
Which has definitely happened to me by the same person a few times.
Yeah.
They shall remain nameless.
No.
Okay.
Is it recording? Can we get
No, you know I started recording it.
No, I've been really lucky. I've been really lucky when especially, speaking about Stamptown specifically, a lot of the acts do reference us. It is either planned or it is just funny, and we're all messing around. We had a really great bit in Edinburgh this year where we just had a moving spot go all the way around, and it just kept going, and Zach was getting annoyed that it was going the wrong way, and then it pans all the way around to me and Johnny, and the cheer we got was like so lovely. I've never experienced anything like that. A completely sold out room in Edinburgh, and they were like, "Oh my God, it's the tech people!" They were so excited. Yeah, it's good fun.
That is fun. I like that.
I think it speaks to like how much everyone talks about comedy being such a solo thing, like especially for stand-up comedy. It's like in the solo show, it's like, oh, the solo person, and there's this pressure, I think, especially when you're in the venues that are not as tech heavy, and perhaps there is an economic benefit to that for a lot of people who can maybe go on the free fringe and go in the less charging of the venues that are available there. And so there is so much that you have to sort of do on your own. But I think that like you're saying, it's sort of showing that it's such a collaborative thing, and it is like it's a team, innit? And I think that's like, it's a real strength of live stuff above like seeing a videotaped. Who am I? Seeing one of those VHS comedy, but like the Netflix special. Like sometimes you do get the text in there, but like you don't get that one moment of like something happening in that room that's not going to happen anywhere else in that way. And I think that's something that production can really bring in a very special way.
Thank you. Must be great. Great, cool. Next question is titled "Interpreting Comedians' Bullshit."
We just did it then, didn't we?
This is basically like, how do you make sense of their kind of mayhem when they come to you with an idea like, I want to piss on stage, or I want to
Done that one.
have a shower on stage.
Done that one.
Or when they're telling you what kind of lights they want, and they said, I want like a joyful blue. What does that mean? How do you kind of like interpret that and then kind of build from that?
I think it's mainly just about, as you said earlier, coming on board to a project sooner rather than later, and just having that conversation. You've just got to ask questions. What does that mean? Like this or like this? And obviously we're not always rich in time, but if you do have that time to be like, okay, do you mean this or this? And like showing different things, that's really nice, because I mean, a lot of the work I do and a lot of the work I used to do, especially in performance art, is just like working in images and stuff like that. And I think a lot of the time artists have sort of seen something or they visualize something, and the best way to figure it out is to just look at it together, I think, and reference pictures. You're not going to the hairdresser, but actually reference pictures are very, very helpful. I get sent things all the time. Oh, this is the thing I'm trying to go for. And you go, okay, well, that is actually impossible in the space that we're in. It's completely impossible. But, let's try and get a feel for that. Let's try and get something close to that. And it is just all about having that conversation and just talking. It's like humans just need to talk things out and figure it out together. And if you haven't got time, then just go for what you think it is, and then run from there.
Yeah, because things can always be modified as you go along.
Yeah,
If it's
yeah,
not
exactly.
quite right, especially if you're doing a month run of something, that there is enough time usually to do a little change of something.
Yeah.
If it's not working, if that blue isn't as joyful as they want it to be, you can try another colour.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
And go
Cool.
with, all right, we tried it this way, it didn't work. Let's see how we can sort that out.
I also think the gift of something going wrong and like recognizing that there is a human who is helping you do that is like a really powerful, as a performer, it's like, don't be a jerk about it. And also like, I don't know anything about tech really, and I'm more than happy to be told what I'm doing is wrong. And I think bracing for that, you know, or like, because I don't learn, I'm not a tech person. I don't have, like, I have experience of doing it myself, but going in prepared to be like, that can't work, or you need to buy this cable because the one that you own doesn't actually go into any machine, which is useful to know.
Cool. Great.
Also, I deal with that stuff with theatre companies all the time anyway, so
Yeah. Okay.
they also come to you and go, oh, I want it to be like this, and just explain it in very abstract terms,
Yeah.
and expect you to create that. So it's not exclusive to comedy, but
Great. And then obviously the way that you'll try and work things for like one-off shows or Edinburgh shows where everything's quite a fast turnaround, as opposed to somewhere doing a residency. So at the moment, tomorrow you've got to get in for a theatre show, or else everything's going to be kind of the same thing every day, and you can leave things all set up. And then Lily in Julia's show at Soho Theatre now, everything's kind of all set up every day. Do you approach what you kind of suggest for residencies differently to what people want to do? So like kind of tamper people's expectations of, well, we can't really do this in Edinburgh because we have to take it down and pack it up every day. But if we do it here, then we've got to do it a bit differently. Is that kind of the case?
Yeah, I mean, that's just sort of general logistics
That's
things,
general
isn't
logistics.
it? Like, I think it goes back to, again, what I was saying of, like, just having that conversation with people. And if you're lucky, you know, that human-to-human understanding that things can't always go exactly the way you want them to, because it's impossible to pack down a shower every night and put it in the cupboard. Well, I'm sure it's possible. I'm sure there's some very clever people out there. But yeah, things like that, like it just comes down to sort of basic logistical things. Of course, those two setups are going to be very different, and it's again trying to get as close to that original concept as possible. You know, make as many people happy in the process, but also not make it an absolute nightmare for, you know, an in-house tech team or front of house team that are having to rip out the seating bank every night because that show doesn't want any seats. I don't know.
Yeah,
that's not a show I'm on,
fun.
by the way. At all.
or you have to put extra seats over the other half
Yeah.
of the stage because they want it to be traverse.
Yeah,
that
yeah,
happened
yeah.
to me every day in Edinburgh one year.
Yeah.
It's all good fun, isn't it?
or the 300-seat venue that we've just
it was
taken
already
over.
a 300-seat venue.
Yeah,
They did extra.
but then there's one show in the middle of the day that wants it in the round. So in the middle of every day, you've got to
Make
move
it
all the
happen.
seats around. But also can only really fit 280 people. Can't fit 300. So that's a squeeze anyway. Anyway, I think that's a good start to talk about the Edinburgh Fringe. Before this, I mentioned that we all probably have big feelings about Edinburgh Fringe, both good and bad. And as you were saying, you started working there as a venue tech or a venue crew, and then worked your way up. And you started just as a freelance.
Just as a freelancer,
freelance.
yeah. Just as a freelancer.
Yeah, and I started working. First year I went up as a performer, and then the second and the rest of the years I went up as a pretty much a venue manager and tech manager. And then last year was my first one as a freelance, so it's a very different kind of scope. What would you say are the current benefits of going to the Fringe as a technician?
Other festivals are available.
Other festivals are available, but they are not as big, and they also apply.
But Before we get into that, actually, I'd one thing we were speaking about earlier, just about to get a lot of experience, you can go to the Fringe. But I just want to quickly say at this point that you don't have to go to the Edinburgh Fringe to get experience. You don't have to pay a ridiculous amount of money to get a train for a start, and then even more ridiculous amount of money to get accommodation. Obviously, it is a very quick way to learn a lot in 4 weeks, but you can also just find the closest Fringe venue to you, just a venue that does a big mix of theatre or comedy, and that is also a very, very good way to learn very, very quickly.
Also community theatres.
Yeah.
They'll have a backstage
Just
team.
any...
But it won't be comedy specific, but...
Any venue with a very high turnover of shows, also a very, very good way to learn very quickly.
I think
you don't have to pay
I think
thousands of pounds in
that
accommodation.
that advice kind of stands for comedians as well. Is like there's at the moment there's one of the main reasons why there's a big accommodation problem in Edinburgh is because so many people want to go. So there's just a massive demand for accommodation, and then there isn't the supply. So people just charge loads and loads of money, and I think it's because there's such emphasis on comedians that having to go to Edinburgh, and you just don't. And it's detrimental to people's mental health and well-being going to the Fringe before they're ready, having a terrible time.
You keep looking at me as you say this.
Directly, Eddie. What I'm saying is,
don't
go too soon, Eddie.
But no, I think it's important. I think it's important to
but
say.
But you're right. Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I think it is that pressure that, like, we've still, as an industry, it feels a little bit like we still haven't. As an industry, practically, we've moved on from the idea of like somebody going up to the Fringe. You know the stories of like comedians in the 90s being like, they came up and they had 3 jokes, and over that month you wouldn't believe the hour they made, and they won the big award, and now they're on TV every day. And practically we've moved on from that. But in the theory and the stories that you sort of do as a at least as a performer, there is still that idea of like maybe I'll have the golden ticket, and maybe I'll be the one at the end of it once I've spent thousands of pounds that I will never see again. Maybe that'll be it.
I was speaking to someone yesterday who did a show at the Pleasance, and the ticket sales were, I think, £38,000 from all of the sales, and from that they saw £750.
That's like to sort of go in as a performer at this point. So 2022, hopefully this year I'm bringing this show up, but 2022 I took the War of the Worlds show and I did a short run for that. And actually what I found most useful was because I went in with a really clear mind of like, I want to invite venues to create a tour after that. I'm not like, because I was only doing a short run, and I think it was the year Sam Campbell got nominated for a short run, but I thought we were saying that you didn't get it for a short run.
So,
but anyway, so in my head, I didn't worry too much about. I was like, well, I'm deliberately not going for awards. If I get reviewers and folks in, fine. But basically, it's to be a platform for a life after that run. And I think having that really clear outlook and a very specific, I'm here for 10 days. That's a clear time window to be like, hey, can you please come here? Hey, can you please come here? And then getting the audiences in was really like probably the best experience I've had of it, I think.
What was the question?
I don't know. The question was, I was going to start with what the benefits of doing the Fringe, and then I was going to continue on to what the downsides of doing the Fringe. But I think we kind of reversed that. But what are the benefits? I think it's you get a lot of experience really quickly. You
meet
do
so
kind of
people.
make really good contacts.
Yeah.
Like all of you and Sarah. And I think it very much depends who you work for and what capacity you go. So then, more specifically then, what are the benefits of going as a venue technician and as a freelance technician?
Okay, so 2012, 13, 14, I went up with Pleasance. And one of the benefits of that was that they gave me accommodation. One of the downsides is that you then are a volunteer and you're expected to work whatever hours you work. And I think it's changed a bit now. This was my experience at the time. And you got a sort of subsistence allowance for the month.
But
Which
you're
for
definitely a
me-
volunteer, and it's not.
Yeah.
It's if it was a job, it would be way below minimum wage.
Yes, yeah. But also, you'd be spending £1,500 on a single room in a halls of residence.
Yeah.
Because, you know, where they put you up was close, and you had a room on your own. You had a bathroom with four people. But yeah, they expect long hours, or they did expect long hours.
Did you enjoy it?
I loved every second of it.
Great.
My third year with them, I was a venue manager.
Were you paid then?
I was paid more than
But
my
still
subsistence was
still
more,
voluntary.
but it was still a volunteer role. So then, what would have been my fourth year up, I then went freelance, and did a variety of shows across various places. Yep.
Which do you prefer? Do you prefer being a venue tech or freelance?
Because I was so early in my career when I went up, I wouldn't have been able to do it as a freelancer because I didn't have the contacts and I didn't have the experience and I didn't really know what I was doing. And it did give me 5 weeks of really learning how things run. But I do prefer being able to do the shows that I choose to do. Because if you're in a small venue, you can be, if you're there all day, you can have 10, 12 shows in your whole day. And that is a lot of time to be spending sitting in a dark room. And
not many breaks.
With 15, 20-minute turnarounds between shows.
And that is can be a really tight turnaround.
Yeah, depending on the shows, that can be, can be a lot. But also I wouldn't be here if I hadn't done that. And I was fortunate that I was in a position that I could afford to do that, and all those things.
Yep.
So.
And Lily, how what are the benefits of then being a freelance and just going and picking your shows?
You get paid, so that's quite a good one. That's a quite good benefit.
You get to pick how much you charge as well.
Yeah, you get to pick how much. It is. It's like you said. It's having that complete freedom over what shows you can pick and how many you can sort of pack into your schedule. You can go up with as few or as many shows as you want. You do have to sort of do the weird accommodation, travel juggle with different companies depending on what companies you're going with. If any of them will pay for your travel or accommodation, that's a little balancing act you've got to do. What else are the benefits? It's the contacts thing again. You get to meet so many people. I this year especially, I went up with too much work. And then added more when I was there. Yes. Met so many lovely people this year, and you have a drink with someone after a show, or you're just literally hanging out with someone, and then you bump into someone that they know, and they go, oh, actually, I've got a tech tomorrow, and we could do with just someone coming in for an hour and programming some lights if you're available, and then you go, yep, yep, totally free, yeah, I'll do that. It's just having that complete freedom to do as many shows as you want, meet loads of lovely people, and have a long sleep.
Also see stuff.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
No.
Depending on
Too
what your
busy.
Depending on how
packed your day
depending
is.
on what your opping schedule's like, because I do sort of a mixture of design and I'll maybe I chuck a few ops in there just because I'm not sort of an operator by nature, but I do also really enjoy it, especially. Stamptown, for example, that one was a sort of no-brainer. I was like, well, I've got to do that for the month. But I did get to see quite a lot of stuff because my opping schedule is different. I had sort of one show that I was doing every day because I couldn't let go of it. And then, an odd one here and there in Stamptown on the weekend. So, I saw quite a lot of stuff this year. I did too much this year, is what I did.
Yeah, we all did.
Yeah,
I had an idea for a
far too
show.
much.
It's called Technician's Nap Time.
Yeah,
And I'm gonna just gonna hire a room for the month
turn the lights off.
and turn the lights off.
Nice.
Tickets are
Music.
£10,000, so no one will come.
Yeah.
And
That's
that's
a
it.
good idea. Very good
Does
idea.
the room have bean bags?
I'll be back.
Okay,
Yeah.
good.
Can I ask with the you mentioned working with companies as a freelance person. Well, I've got two questions, but you mentioned working with companies as freelance. Could you explain? I guess for people who have never teched anything before and thinking about it, it might be useful to sort of talk about the difference between like going freelance with individual shows and then going freelance with companies, if that.
Yeah. So basically, there's a few different there's loads of different production companies, but there's quite a few specifically that do comedy. I think there's like 10 or 12 major ones. And the way that I got the freelance stuff this year is I just approached all of those and said, do you need any technicians? And they said yes. I think the best way to do it is if you look at the comedians that went last year, what production companies they were with, and then email them.
And that's just in the little.
That'll
This
be in their
company
little
presents.
produced by that person.
Exactly.
And the benefit of doing that as opposed to just individual shows is normally the ones that go with production companies have got more money. So the production company will be paying you so they can afford it more. But then there's also more costs for the artist at the end. And if you're going just with an independent person taking your show, you don't have that kind of safety net of there being lots of producers and things, but they're often nicer to work with. And it's a better relationship between you and them specifically.
This might be going too far off, but it's very useful for me to know.
Yeah.
Because as I think a lot of comedians as well, especially Leicester Comedy Festival and at the Fringe, will self-produce stuff. And how does that conversation happen for a comedian with a production company? Because I know if you've got an agency, agencies will have production arms and things like that. But if that's something you've not done before, how does that happen?
I mean, how do you get with a production company?
Yeah, what is the pathway for that for both freelance folks and for the performers? How is that? I guess because that gives context for, as a technician, how much prep has happened with that comedian in the company.
I think we might all be the wrong people to be asking this.
Okay.
But
Invite them to see a show.
Yeah.
So
Invite
invite
them
them
to
to see a show.
Put a comp in.
Try and arrange to have a chat with them.
Yeah.
They
go see
might-
one of their shows.
Yeah. So, yes. Know what
Turn up at
what's
their
on their
office.
books. See.
Find out their home address.
Follow them. No.
Company's house. Wait.
And it depends on what they're. But like Grubby Little Mitts don't currently have a production company behind them, but we've done relatively all right.
Yeah.
As
You don't.
we are.
Yeah, I think probably for folks who don't, you can do it without. I just thought it'd be an interesting thing to throw in, both for myself and for performers, and also that like the what is it? The infrastructure, the ecology of Fringe and comedy festivals, and how that happens.
And everything behind the scenes. There's so much that goes on behind the scenes that people don't know, like producers, promoters, directors, everything.
Yeah, and if you've got a production company behind you, that takes some of the pressure off you in terms of a lot of stuff
Absolutely.
that you would have to do yourself.
Yeah.
Oh
Marketing
yes.
and all those things that you know what you have to
But
do.
also, I
Arguments
do.
with venues.
Which is God, that'd be great. Not to mention specific drum and bass runs. I think it's useful, maybe useful to say from my experience of it, that self-producing stuff does make you appreciate when somebody else does it, in the same way that doing your own tech for a bit and being like, this is really hard, makes you appreciate and have, I think, a stronger, more respectful relationship with the people that you're asking to do those things.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Like, do you guys see that when somebody's tried to do themselves, and then
They might forget things like starting the record and picking up the microphone at the beginning.
you pressed record at some point, which is what that you remembered it is wild to me, because I spend most of my shows putting a camera at the back that just stays there. It's just like an offstage prop. That's just what it's there for.
Then, yeah, you said the Fringe isn't the only festival. What other festivals do you go to that you really enjoy working at? Or would you recommend for artists and technicians to go and check out?
Should we just say Leicester Comedy Festival immediately, just so we don't all miss that out? Leicester Comedy Festival. Yeah.
Well, we were talking about this earlier, but I mean, I used to work at Vault Festival a lot, and it was a really sort of good time in the year to sort of get things ready for, you know, later on in the festival season. But, you know, that one's
yeah.
Vault Festival, but it's bit in the dust.
It's gone.
Yeah, bit in the dust. So that was sort of like, really, I'd sort of bounce between those two. And that one's gone now. But, I mean, talks.
Buxton Fringe is
Buxton's great.
What did you get? Did you win? Did you get?
I got nominated for Best Comedy Show at Buxton, which was very nice for me.
Nice.
And they've always been very supportive. I think it's a real sweet size because the area itself is very nice, a tourist destination, and also the people who live there have an expendable income to go see theatre shows and also take a risk on something, which for Fringe is very useful. But also, it's the geography of the area is such a size that's very hard to get to, which means that people who are performing there want to go there, and audiences that are there. And it's not, you know what I mean? You know, sometimes
it's really easy for me to get to.
Yeah.
It's like 4 stops on the train.
Right, yeah. Well, but I think Buxton's good, and I think it's also very supportive of the actor there. So I would recommend that, but not everyone, because come on, we got a good limited number. I find with the Fringe so much. Sorry, I will stop but I find with the Fringe so much sometimes especially when you're like self-producing, you're flying and everything. It does feel sometimes like you're pitching audiences as doing you a bit of a favour to see your show when you have such a wealth. You're spoiled for like the best circus in the world, the best theatre in the world, and the best stand-up in the world, all there. And then you, as somebody who's a scrappier, self-producing person, is like, hey, come see my thing as well.
Just against the
we've had some nice times.
People.
Yeah, we've had some nice times at the Brighton Fringe.
Yeah.
I was about to say Brighton Fringe.
That's I don't remember the first year I went, 2015, I think. First year I went with a comedian we did a kids show.
Kids shows are great.
Yeah. That also involved a lot of ping pong balls, but
Love it.
which Grubby Little Mitts did in their first year as well. So when they approached me and said there might be 1,000 ping pong balls to pick up at the end, I said it's fine. I've dealt with that before. Brighton Fringe has always been nice to do because it's sort of May, so as a sort of work in progress before going up to the Edinburgh Fringe, it can be quite good.
It's coming up. It's coming up soon, right? No, what are we in? February. Soonish.
Yeah, 2 months. That's soon.
And
have you done anything at Glasgow?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah, that's good.
And we're going again this year. We
with
went
Grubby?
last year. Yeah. Yes. Although the guy on before us made us late, and we were then missed Stamp Town.
It's all right. It's not very good anyway.
We arrived as Vigo was wrapping up because the guy that was doing his slot before us overran by half an hour.
Whoopsie.
But
But you got to remember, everyone was laughing in my audience for that half an hour. That's important.
I was there. It was brilliant.
Thank you. We did both miss the thing that you hyped.
In terms of the venue, like they did everything that they possibly could to stop this guy. They turned all the lights on.
That's why I put a torch on.
He was just for smart stopping.
Yeah, and that happens quite. I think that's another thing. Like, especially when you're in the free Fringe venues, like. It's the camaraderie of everyone, and you never know what's going to happen in terms of like the runtime. That 15 to 20 minutes, sometimes getting that 15 to 20 minutes, it's like, yes, 20 whole minutes, whoa!
The 15 to 20 minutes includes getting the audience out and getting the next audience in as well.
Yeah.
So it's really more like 10.
It's like the Formula One. of changing show over in it. Like you run the wheels in.
Yeah.
For my show about building a car, that's what I'm talking about specifically.
Okay, so we're coming to the end. I think my final question is it's kind of about working conditions and representation for technicians for comedy in the comedy world. I invited someone from BECTU, which is like a theatre technicians union, to come to this, and they said it wasn't really worth it. They come in, which I was sad about.
Cancelled. Absolutely cancelled.
Yeah, but I'm also trying to find. So they publish a load of like recommended rates for people that work in tech, and they've got lots for theatre, touring theatre, and residency theatre. They've got lots for music. They've got lots for music tour managers, things like that. But there's no kind of advice for how much like comedy techs and things should really charge or get paid. And it is such a different kind of skill set to a lot of other things because you're doing most of the things kind of on your own. Nothing's as complicated as doing like the sound for a band or the sound for a theatre show or the lights for a theatre show. But you normally have to be. It can be, and you normally have to do it all yourself at the same time. So what are your opinions on, do you think comedy tech is undervalued in the tech world? Or do you think sometimes when you go to a theatre with a comedy show, the theatre techs kind of look down on you, or like it's not as important?
Oh yeah, no, I'm gonna jump straight in and say absolutely, and that's speaking from someone who has worked in theatre and worked in comedy. I think, and also my partner works in sort of larger scale theatre, and sometimes sort of turns up to things where, you know, I've hired him for the day. He's a production manager. I've hired him for the day to come and help out with something. And he's like, oh, wow, you're doing all this, are you? And I'm like, yeah, it does happen in this industry as well, all right? We can build showers too. But yeah, I think there is a really strange sort of comedy techs kind of like straddle a very weird line, very, very strange line of having to be a stage manager and a sound technician and also a designer and also be able to program a lighting desk, you know, do all these things, or at least if you can't do all of them, have the skills to be able to run that room to make sure things are happening on time. So in terms of sort of pay and stuff like that, what I would say, you go to sort of ITC stage management rates, take their rate from that one, and then go to the Association for Lighting Designers, take them on for that one as well, just add them all up and then put that through as your day rate. I think
I don't think that's
you get
work.
work that way, but I think that's, you know, the reason there isn't very good or sort of enough guidance on rates like that is because you are doing the job of several people. So quite a lot of the time these sort of union guidelines are for just this one job and just this one job and just this one job. So it is quite tough, and I'm figuring out that sort of what you think you're worth, what other people think you're worth as well. Because I think I don't know about other people, but you know, when I'm talking about pay, I do like to sort of frame it as a conversation with producers or with artists, because especially, you know, when you're speaking to someone who is self-funded or self-produced, they're not going to be able to afford the same rate as someone who's, you know, with a massive production company. So again, it sort of goes straight back to the thing I said at the start of it. It's all about that human conversation and just talking things through, making sure you're being valued, but their work's also being valued, and no one's putting themselves in a very rubbish position.
Cool. That's good. That's a good answer. Anything from you, Eddie? Got anything you got to say for yourself?
Paid less.
No. I think it's the rough thing about the comedy industry in general is like there isn't really any formalized pay for anything in it, is it?
Yeah, I think the fact it's weird to say this. It sounds is an odd way of phrasing it, but comedy isn't taken seriously as an art form.
Yeah, but
and the fact that it's not like, I don't know if it's still not like funded by Arts Council.
No, not really. So I've had Arts Council funding for this project, but this is the thing about theatre comedy. Yeah. It's like it's marketed as a comedy show because that's my background, but there's so many theatrical elements that if you were a theatre goer and you watch it, you'd go, Yeah, that's a theatre show. And I think it's been really interesting over the past year and a half doing more of a theatre context, going on like tours of theatres and seeing that infrastructure that's built in there compared to the huge financial risks that performers take. And then because they're taking a huge financial risk and there's no guarantee, that then gets passed on to people who aren't taking a financial risk but are making a professional risk because the economics aren't robust enough, really. Like, there's some really great festivals in the country that folks don't find out whether they're managing venues of until the program's released, which is a way to do it.
Like really, really, really good festivals.
Not to specifically name
festivals,
anyone.
So good.
And they're wonderful festivals. They're great and they're amazing to do. But it is that thing of like, that's how the industry works at the moment, and how, like, I don't know. That's such a broad answer at the end, but it needs to be better. Can it be better, please?
No.
Oh, well, I'd try my best, guys. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Okay, I think that's all the time we have. Is there anything that you folks would like to promote, or anything that you're doing you want people to go and see? Any specifically tonight?
Yeah, okay. Oh, sure. So if you fancy seeing it, people in the room or people on the live stream, if you're in the general vicinity of Leicester but for some reason did not want to come to this room, you could come to the room downstairs at 7 today. And also, I've got my other...
What's it called?
It's called Eddie Hurst's Wonderful Discovery of Witches in the County of Himself, which is about the Lancashire witch trials, late-stage neurodivergent diagnosis, and the Venga Boys, the Holy Trinity.
Of course.
And then I'm doing my other show on the 22nd of February, which is Forget About It, which is at Duffy's Bar, where I'm Isambard Kingdom Brunel, travelling through time to try and...
So all of your shows are a little bit weird.
I don't know. Actually, I think you'll find that the narrative is very tight for Forget About It, actually.
It's the shortest title so far.
It is the shortest title so far.
Has you got anything you're doing?
Grab Your Little Mitts were here at the Comedy Festival last weekend, so you missed them, if you're here. But we are going on a bit of a tour at the end of March, starting at the Glasgow Comedy Festival and working our way down a bit, coming to Manchester.
Good to Manchester.
Very, very beginning of April. We're also going to Sheffield and Bedford and Cambridge and Norwich and Newcastle. I think that's it. And then I'm also producing So I'm an associate producer on a play that's at the Space in London that's opening also in March, mid-March. And then I'm producing another one, same space at the Space in London, another play called Portia's Julius Caesar. That's an all-female cast version of Julius Caesar, but from the perspective of Portia, not comedy.
And we don't care.
Hey,
it should not be promoted here.
You know, Shakespeare's...
There's no place for it.
Got some good jokes in there, though, hasn't he? You know, when he talks about cock and balls. And you're like, whoa, but this is old. It's pretty good, actually.
But yeah, so then...
you can quote me on that.
Great. Yeah. Then, Grab Your Little Mitts will be doing... Oh, we also do a sketch night at the Rosemary Branch in London. That's a mixed bill sketch night for sketch artists to try new work. And that is once a month. And the next one is Monday.
Hey.
We have also had some musical comedians come on to do some stuff. If you're ever in... Grabby Comedy. That's what their handles are on the various things.
Grabby Comedy.
Grabby Comedy.
What are you up to?
It's like the panic in my eyes. I've got to remember every single one. I feel bad if I don't mention people. So Julia Masley's on at Soho Theatre at the moment. Sold out, but if you can get a ticket, it's good. Tonight, if you're in London, One Way Mirror is on at Soho again in the upstairs.
Jonathan's great.
That's one of my favourite shows that I design. Can't operate it tonight because I'm doing Julia. Very, very sad. So go and...
I'll do Julia's if you want.
Go and sympathise with Jonathan.
I'll do Julia's.
Maybe we'll swap. We'll talk after. Okay. And then go see High Stakes. It's going on tour, doing a little sort of mini tour over the next few months. With a residency at New Diorama Theatre, also in London, starting very soon. I think it's in March. Yep, in the second week of March, I think. for 2 weeks. Then that's going on tour. And then Fame Hungary as well will be at Colchester. Not a London one. Will be at Colchester. I think that's everything for now. I think.
Yeah?
Am I missing anything? No, I don't know. Yeah,
No.
that's fine.
No?
Yeah. The other one was the other... Yeah, that's it.
Okay.
That's everything.
Cool. That's everything.
Could I quickly say one more thing?
No!
Okay.
Yes.
Just for
Yes, you can.
talking about underrepresentation in the
Yeah.
arts and things, I'd really recommend for, if anyone's listening to this who is a younger person, which I think is under the age of 26 is what's counted by them, Arts Emergency is a really good organisation that works with working class, disabled, global majority, female or non-binary trans people to develop their art skills, put them in contact with folks and try to address that imbalance that there is in the industry.
I have had work experience. Students from them come and work with
Excellent.
me before now. So,
Thank you very much.
so yeah.
But yes, I
Definitely,
started
yeah.
mentoring with them, and I'm very, very excited to do that. But also, they're great, they're ace, and they have a comedy background because Josie's the patron.
Great. Well, then that brings us to the end. Thank you very much. We've run over a little bit. If you're watching at home, thank you for watching at home. And also, because I've got to turn off the live stream, and it looks weird for me walking to the back. So if you could just close the browser now. No. The people at home. If they, the people at home, just close the browser now.
You get to do your own tech now.
And then
you get
to-
experience.
You're part of the show. Oh, and then Sarah, you can give us questions later and hang out. But thank you, everybody. Thank you to my wonderful panel for coming.
Thank you very
Thank you to
much.
the venue.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
everybody. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.